Welcome back to the channel, my friends. On today's video, we're going to be removing and replacing the air suspension reservoir or the tank on this vehicle. I have the new tank here to replace. This is an OEM, supposed to be black. I did paint this green just to be kind of different. If you're doing this on a lift, obviously you don't have to put a jack stand under the vehicle, even though when removing the air tank, your suspension should not leak, but it's always a good idea to put a couple jack stand underneath, so if you're working under the vehicle, it's not going to drop on you. So to remove the tank, if you have side steps like I do on this vehicle, that side step must be removed. That's the only way you can get the tank out from underneath the vehicle. So again, our first step is going to be removing this side step from the outside. There is one bolt here, usually 10 or 8 millimeter. Now some of these sizes can be different depending on if they're OEM. On this particular vehicle, these are aftermarket side steps. So again, some of the hardware and sizes can be different. So let's get underneath and take a look. So underneath the vehicle here, I apologize for the shiny coating. That's actually just undercoating. Now if you may remember, I repaired this tank. It's been about 5-6 months. Now it does have another leak kind of right next to where the original leak was. So we'll be replacing this tank. Now again, with the side steps, if you see these bars, they come under where the tank's located and mount to the frame. So these 10 millimeter bolts will have to be removed. Also, it mounts on the inside here. There's 2 more 10 millimeter bolts, one here, one right next to it. Those just have to be loosened up. This bracket is slotted. Going to be kind of hard to see. I will do the best I can. We will also have to loosen up the shield that's on the fuel tank, so we can access the airline going into the tank. These 13 millimeter bolts here, and there's a couple up top around there. We don't need to remove the whole thing. We just want to loosen up this side so it can hang down. As far as your side step goes, there's 2 brackets. Here's one in the front, and that's the same setup here. Bolt here, and then on the inside bracket you'll have 2 more. You can see I'm missing one. So let's get these bolts off and get the step off of the vehicle. So here I have the side step off of the vehicle. This step is kind of in a rough shape, but luckily all my bolts I was able to loosen up and remove. Again, now looking at it this way, this bolts right to the frame here. One bracket on the front, one in the back, and these brackets mount to the side, the rocker part of the vehicle. Again, you don't have to completely remove these. These are slotted. You can see the back one, so you can leave those in. Here with the side step removed, now the tank can be removed, and there's nothing in the way. Here are the bolts on the side for the step, and of course here on the frame. So our next step is going to be removing the line that's going into the tank, the airline itself. You can see that's way up there. We should be able to access that better once the shield is loose and hanging down a little bit. So we'll get these 13 millimeter or 12, whatever they are, and move this shield a little further down so we can reach the airline. So I was able to loosen up the 4 10 millimeter bolts holding the tank into place, which are these. It'll be easier to show you on the newer tank here. So the bolts are here and here, and 2 in the front here. So once you take those off, there's nothing else holding the tank other than the airline. I chose not to loosen up the back shield. There's quite a few bolts, and mine are pretty kind of rusted. But just from hanging it like this, I put an old milk crate underneath just to support it, and that gave me just enough room back here to loosen up the airline from the tank. You can see the airline right there. So I was able to take a 12mm wrench and loosen the line from the tank. Now, even though my tank has a leak, it still had a little bit of air in it. So I just loosened the airline and let it completely depressurize before I remove the line. So now we'll go ahead and get our milk crate out of here and remove this tank from the vehicle. So here I have the old tank removed from the vehicle. We just want to make sure everything's in the same spot, comparing it to our new. Now, one thing to note when you are removing the airline from the tank, there's a couple different ways you can do that. Let's look at our new tank here. So I chose just to remove this 12mm nut or ferrule from this. You can also remove this big 22mm from the tank itself. I'm just going to leave that one alone. That's on the replacement tank. That way my new line already has this and it will screw right into that. But you can do it either way, as long as you're not twisting the line while you're removing this. You want to make sure, otherwise you will end up breaking this line and having to repair that also. Now you can see how bad of a shape this tank was in. A lot of time when you remove these from a vehicle, you'll find they're filled with water. This particular one is dry at the moment, but if I turn it, you can see all the rust that's fallen out. So this tank is really rusting up from the inside out. That's fairly common on these. Now the suspension system on these vehicles, they do have a dryer desiccant system that should keep the moisture out of the system, but they're neglected, and after that they just start to rot from the inside out. So if you keep tuned, in the coming videos we will also try to replace the desiccant and the dryer system. That's part of this air suspension system. Earlier Range Rovers actually came with the aluminum style tank. They're a little bit different, but you can also use one of those if you can get a hold of one. They are out there. I'll try to find some and put those in the description for you. So let's go ahead and get our new tank in the vehicle. We're going to try to do the same thing. I will support it with this milk crate, get it in position, get my airline on, and then we'll go ahead and put the mounting bolts in and hang it in place. So with the tank supported, so I was able to connect the line and tighten that up while the tank is still loose. Now we'll take the mounting bolts for the tank, again 2 in the back and 2 in the front, and get the tank secured. Now when you are tightening up the line, this being a line, there is an O-ring on this, so it's a good time to change that before you put the line onto the tank. And if you did remove that big 22mm instead of this, there's also an O-ring on that too. So it's not a bad idea to replace the O-ring so you don't run into a leak condition. Tank in place and secured. I did undercoat the bolt. I've also used some anti-seize on all the hardware. They'll be going back together, so in case it ever needs to come apart again, it can without issue. Our line should be nice and tight back here. Again, we never did need to remove this shield to access that. We were able to just undo one side, lean it down a little bit, and undo and put the line together at the same time. Again, I undercoated the connections to keep them clean and rust free for a while. We have our tank in place, secured, airline back on. Only thing we need to do is put the side step back on. But before we do that, we want to go ahead and start the vehicle up, let the compressor kick on and fill the air tank, and then we want to make sure there's no leaks. We'll take a spray bottle with soap, some dish soap and water, and spray it around the line connection, make sure there's no leaks anywhere. Then we'll go ahead and button everything up. I was able to start the vehicle, let it idle for about 5 minutes, let the reservoir fill up. I took my soapy water solution, sprayed it around the tank and our line connection. There seems to be no leaks, no issues. So the only thing I have to complete yet is putting the side step on. I will be cleaning that up before that goes on. I was able to get most of the rust off of this side step. This one's kind of beyond saving. I did coat it with some undercoating anyways. Maybe I'll get another season out of this. but it will need to be replaced eventually. It's starting to rot pretty bad. So we'll get this on and we'll get this buttoned up. We have the side step back on the vehicle. Tank is replaced. This job is completed. No more issues with the air leaks. In the coming up videos, we will take a look at the rest of the system to see how much moisture has damaged, if anything. And like I said, there is a desiccant bag, a dryer system, compressed air, and the suspension system. We'll take a look at that, and hopefully we can replace some of those components to keep the system alive and functioning how it should be. I thank you for watching.